We'll just give it another minute or so to allow people to choose their breakout rooms.
While they're choosing, let me say hello to many who have joined who I know. Thank you. And for those who are joining who are new. Yeah, great. Great that you're here. I should also probably say that Juliet Martin will be taking notes, but she has to leave very soon, in which case Janan will take over, right? Yeah. And Jamie, I guess we'll need to find somebody also to report back.
Yeah, I guess either one of us could potentially do that.
Maybe somebody, a new face.
Sure, yeah, or a volunteer.
Volunteer, right.
Great. Well, I wonder whether we should start with a quick round of introductions, just so that we know who is in the room and get a bit of a sense of what everybody's backgrounds are, and I guess why you're interested, to spend a bit of more in-depth time discussing this wildfire risk management topic. So I might go first, and then I'll make my way down the names as I see them on the screen, to allow you a couple of minutes just to introduce yourselves. And we don't have a huge amount of time, so please maybe just say a bit about your background and then why you're particularly interested to take part in this breakout session. So my name's Jamie Pollard, and as mentioned, I'm part of WTW's Climate and Resilience Hub. My background is around catastrophe risk modeling and have worked on wildfire insurance in California. Over to you, Joanne.
Oh, okay. I don't need much introduction. I've already been introduced, so I will just say I'm Joanne from EASA and learning a lot about wildfire risk management.
And Janan?
Good morning. My name is Janan Ershad. I also work at EASA with Joanne and Juliet, trying to develop a taxonomy on insurances for nature-based solutions.
Thanks, Jan. Elizabeth Boner?
Yeah, so my background is financial services, half of 20-something years in corporations and half in startups. I'm new to nature-based solutions and really interested in focusing on climate change for the next phase of my career. And at the point where I'm looking to either start something up or join. So I'm someone with lots of time on my hand who's very interested and eager to participate in a good cause.
Brilliant, thank you, Elizabeth. Juliet.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Juliet Martin. I work also at IASA, the International Institute for Applied Systems Analysis. My background is more in ecology and ecosystem services, but I've been working now for the last 5 years on nature-based solutions and specifically governance of nature-based solutions. So I'm also part of the Naturance Work Package 3 team.
Thanks, Juliet. We have Valentina.
Yes. Hello, everybody. Can you hear me? Valentina Bacciu. I'm from the CNR, the National Research Council of Italy. I'm a fire researcher since my PhD studies back in 2009. And in a particular project called THEAT, where I'm involved also with Joanne and the IASA group, we are also dealing with insurance for the wildfire sector, and in order to understand how nature-based solution can be and fire models can be integrated in the insurance models and can help dwellers and touristic operator in protect themselves and engage the community in these insurance activities.
Brilliant, really interesting. Thank you. Lydia?
Hi everyone. So I'm Lydia Brown and I'm part of Jamie's team at Willistown WTW Climate Resilience Hub, part of the disaster risk finance and parametrics team. So by background, we do a lot of disaster risk management, disaster risk finance, and I do a lot of the analytics behind it. Good morning.
Thanks, Lydia. Tim Foreman?
Everyone, I'm Tim Foreman. I will be joining EASA as of July to work on the Naturance project. I'm currently a postdoc at King's College London, where I've been working on climate impacts and kind of gotten into insurance around flooding impacts and generally around climate finance issues. So I'm looking forward to getting involved.
Great, thank you. Then Edward?
Yeah, good morning. I will be just only some minutes with you because I'm just on the forest, exactly fire prevention. No, we're having an activity right now today, but I'm just trying to join as much as possible. Webinar. I'm working in the Forest Science and Firelogue project, and also trying to contribute from wildfire expertise within working group of insurance with Joanne and all the amazing team of EASA. So I'm just trying to contribute from our wildfire expertise. Thank you very much.
Brilliant, thank you. Jan Brooke?
Oops. So good morning. I'm Jan Brooke. I wear lots of different hats, but today I'm wearing the hat of the World Association for Waterborne Transport Infrastructure. So ports and harbours basically. Piang is concerned with producing technical guidance, good practice guidance. We're currently working on a technical note, which is about making the business case for climate change adaptation. So while wildfires are only of some interest to some of our ports where transport routes are affected, because some of the ports, the transport bringing goods into ports are prone to wildfires rather than necessarily the ports themselves. What I'm really interested in is these 7 questions, because I think they apply much more broadly than just to wildfire hazards. So I'm here more learning than contributing, but it's looking at the broad principles. Thank you.
Excellent, thank you. Yeah, and certainly the intention is to start broad, and then we'll focus in towards wildfire towards the end of the session. I think Gabrielle?
I think she wrote in the chat that she cannot speak.
Ah, no problem. On to Louise Sousa. Or perhaps Thomas Shinko.
Yeah, so another EASA team member. I'm working with Joanne and others, and I'm today here for listening in from a Firelogue perspective, because they were also focusing on insurance for wildfire risk management. And I'm a trained economist and hence quite excited and interested in what insurance can actually do in terms of financing nature-based solutions. So thanks for inviting me and for hosting this event.
Great, thank you. Gyota? Or perhaps Nuha, could you give an introduction?
Yes, hi everyone. My name is Nuha Eltinay. I am part of ECLA's team, and I'm part of the urban resilience and climate adaptation. I'm a senior officer, And the reason I'm joining today is at some point I will be also supporting the Naturance project, but as well as coming up also with understanding a bit of synergies when it comes into the development of insurance-based solutions, and specifically in wildfires, and connecting that into climate risk assessments and some of the work that we do with the local communities in other projects. So a bit of cross-cutting and knowledge sharing experiences. Thank you.
Brilliant, thank you. And I know that community angle is something we're certainly interested in investigating a bit more in the in-depth innovation lab in Solsona. So that's really interesting. Eva, and then finally Teresa.
Yeah, hi, yet another IASA member joining from IASA. Yeah, as I said, I'm also working on Firelogue, on the Firelogue project, and I'm a doctoral student in economics, where I am very keen now to look also into welfare risk as one of the climate risks that I'm covering in my thesis. So yeah, looking forward to this event.
Thank you. And Teresa, finally, I think.
Hi, yeah, my name is Teresa de Belihuang. I'm also from the IASA group of people. I also work on the Firelogue project and actually work very closely with Joanne on the insurance, nature-based solutions and wildfire team. And it's a pleasure to be here today and speak to you.
Thanks, Teresa.
And I think you forgot me.
Tatiana, sure,
So,
go ahead.
Yeah, just go ahead. So I'm Tatiana. I'm from the TU, Technical University of Denmark, and I'm a postdoc. And we are working in the Triads project that we're doing a risk assessment of wildfires. And in the future, our pilots express some interesting to know a little more about the insurers, how they can work on the process, to some solutions on their specific cases. So I'm here to learn and for this project.
Brilliant, thank you. So it's clear that we've got a real range of expertise and interest in the room. So what we wanted to start with today is to think and speak in a little bit more detail about these sort of 7 ways in which insurance has intersected with nature-based solutions to date, looking at the case studies that Joanne mentioned in her presentation. So as a starting point, we'd be really interested to know whether you're aware of any other case studies that might fit into one of these 7 sort of approaches, or whether you think there are other ways in which the insurance industry might help to promote nature positive outcomes and investment and financing of nature-based solutions. So it would be great to know if anyone has any initial comments or reactions to this list and the case studies that Joanne presented.
Victor, Jamie, can you actually see the hands if you're sharing your screen?
Yes, I see yours, it's raised. Is that the...
I don't want to be the first, but I started many other hands. I'll just maybe get the conversation started. I think I realized when Victor gave his presentation that actually we forgot one. Which is actually probably going to be very important. And that was this community risk, ways insurers could in fact give incentives to communities, not individuals, to invest in nature-based solutions. And this community program with the National Flood Insurance Program actually has that built into it, and actually does encourage some nature-based solutions. And it's something that Valentina and I have been discussing, and Valentina might want to come in and say more about that. We've been talking about how that might be very useful for wildfire, since wildfire, there is, of course, something you can do if your house, is exposed to wildfire. You can change your materials, change your roof. There's quite a few things you can do. But there's a lot that when it comes to nature-based solutions, it's more in the hands of the community. So So we thought, that we should explore this. Valentina, do you want to say a word on that?
Well, yes, nature-based solution is more, you said is more in the hands of the community. This is because, everyone can protect, let's say, his house in the countryside or in the outskirts of rural areas. But sometimes those are isolated events, let's say, and in order to stop fire spreading or protect in a proper manner the wildland-urban interface, it is necessary that the entire community work together. So not a spot activities, but a joint activity. So it's a matter also of understanding the more critical areas, understanding which are the more suitable options to be put in place in a certain area in contrast to others. So also is a matter of discussing with the community in order to understand their perception, their real risk, their asset, their values at risk, all these things. And so we thought that so insurance product could help. New insurance product, community-based, could help in order to also better engage with stakeholders and citizens, and promote those activities at community level in order to reduce risk and in order to also reduce the premium. So in order to have, so we are working, for example, in the AT project, we are working together with another an insurance group, LEITA, to develop this model community-based. So a model that can integrate information from the science, so risk assessment, vulnerability assessment, etc., but also nature-based solution applied at community level. So this is more or less what we are working on.
I think that's a really interesting point, and I think that one of the key barriers to integrating nature-based solutions is that a lot of industry and underwriting models are quite rigid and don't necessarily have the frameworks to take into account some of these broader factors, which, as you say, need to be taken into account in order to capture things like risk reduction from community-based actions. Really interesting. I see Edward has a hand up there.
Yeah, thank you. I think that the previous presentation from John was excellent, but I was thinking that maybe including some aspect related to the landscape dimension of the solution, it's also necessary. And what I mean with that is that the examples that we show were very interesting, but most of our loads, for instance, in terms of wild-urban interface protection, it's just asking for a fuel management around, let's say, for instance, by law, 25 meters. But we know that this is not a real protection for houses. So in somehow is attached to nature-based solutions, probably that landscape dimension. You need to influence fire behavior at landscape level. If not, it's not a solution. This is the first. So it doesn't mind if it's more kind of intense fuel management that remember as a garden, or it's less intense. And this is at the same time it's very close to biodiversity discussion. Even we could decide it what happened. I'm right now in a natural park, and there is a strong discussion if we should, I mean, could be, you know, a very strategic and intense fuel management, which is very far from, let's say, biodiversity issues, but at the same time is protecting all the landscape, which means that it's protecting the biodiversity of the landscape. So be aware or take care about biodiversity concept within a nature-based solution is needed, but sometimes some strategic management can help to protect biodiversity at landscape level on one hand, and on the other hand also integrate that landscape dimension. I'm just taking that I'm lucky being on I don't know, oh no, it's not, okay, doesn't mind. But what I mean is that what I'm finishing with this. What for us is very useful as a risk managers, the concept of nature-based solution is a way also to engage private owners. So I think that with this project and what we are doing within Firelogue, if we are able to frame in a proper way the concept of nature-based solution for wildfire prevention, we will have also the chance to engage private business, etc. Because currently, as I said, by law, they only need to clean or to reduce fuels in 25 meters, but this is not. So we need some element, and once more, insurance can play a fundamental role to engage that exposed actors, sometimes are economic activities, sometimes are houses, sometimes are homeowners, to have this dialogue with the landscape. It's a bit conceptual, but I think that this is a clear way of just starting working on it. So that's all from my side. I'm very sorry because just now they are going to do our public action, so I need to leave, but I hope to follow your discussions in next steps. Thank you very much and see you soon.
Great to have someone on the field.
Yeah. It's always the best office, you know. Bye.
Bye.
Sorry. Bye.
I think there's a couple of things in there that would be really great to dig into in a little more detail. One is around this kind of landscape scale change. I think a lot of the examples that Joanne mentioned are pilots or conceptual studies. And there's been, I guess, it's been a bit slower to take some of these nature-based solutions to scale. So it'd be great to know if anyone's knows of any examples where there are nature-based solutions which involve insurance actors on slightly bigger scales. And secondly, whether anyone has done any more work on the biodiversity element here, which is obviously interlinked with the wildfire and climate-related piece as well.
Can I talk? Can I?
Please. Yeah.
Okay. Well, as Joanne mentioned in the beginning, we have some ways to construct houses in new materials, and also I think well, I would raise a question here also for you about how insurance deals with well, usually the areas that is more in risk is people that are more poor, you know, like and it's more difficult for them to bring these new materials, new construction in houses. And at the same time, we need the government to make a regulation because they extend their houses to areas that are in risk. And so this is two things that I don't know how the insurance could work with, like because the constructions of houses in the risk areas and how to deal with people that need to improve their houses to more nature-based solutions in this case, but don't have cannot afford to do that, you know, like it's.
So any thoughts from the room on how you can, I guess, finance nature-based solutions using perhaps some sort of incentive mechanism that where insurance could come in, or any examples where we've seen successes on the regulatory side, or perhaps a need for regulation in order to get some of these things off the ground, I guess. Joanne?
Yeah, I want to give everybody others a chance, but people are very silent in this room. One, we haven't gone too much into the private ownership housing on nature-based solutions, but I think it's a really interesting question. For instance, I don't know, I was in a project where we built a bunch of houses together and we put on grass roofs. I think that would be really interesting because there's a lot of talk of doing fire-resistant roofs, and the things that I have seen, they're not very nature-based, but they're fire-resistant. So I do think there's a whole scope to look into the private housing nature-based solutions, and hopefully our innovation lab could bring some of that in. What I think what's been occupying my mind is this landscape issue and what Edward was talking about. And I do think there's a conflict brewing on, do we actually want houses there? I think one of our biggest problems is that housing, the urbans are expanding into the wild. And so one way to go is to say, let's make sure that these houses are fire resistant, let's make sure that they have insurance and so on and so forth. But that begs the issue that we're really destroying biodiversity by allowing these houses. So in that case, I'm worried that insurance might actually have a moral hazard to it in terms of biodiversity. And that's something that's, I think could be quite serious. So so I would like to, keep that our innovation lab would kind of explore that also in terms of these 7 ways that, insurers have come in to kind of look at them and say, which ones really promote biodiversity and are there some that don't? And I think, frankly, most of them do that I put up. But I think we can also come up with some examples where they don't.
Can I jump in here? So I was just thinking about your interesting case study, Joanna, where it was about how the forestry and like the position of the pattern of the forest affects biodiversity. And one of the very simple risk reducing things you can do if you're a house owner in a wildfire risk area is to just sweep away create a radius around your house and sweep away any dead leaves, kind of reduce anything that's highly flammable. But I was wondering if anyone knew whether or not how that affects biodiversity on like that scale. Do we know whether like removing leaves reduces, like it affects some sort of insect? I don't know. But it's that, I think, particularly with insurance, it's that risk reduction element where you can add into an insurance product like these incentives for people like to reduce the amount of premium they have to pay by reducing their risk. So if you could, I don't know if you could say to a private house owner, okay, if you continuously make sure there's no leaves within this vicinity of your house, the premium will be reduced by this amount. I think that's one way insurance could work quite well. It's that incentive to reduce the risk.
I think that's a really good point, Lydia. And I think in the introductions we had a few ecologists mentioned. Does anyone got a bit more kind of expertise around the biodiversity piece of this, and whether there are some, or what the nature-based solutions are that would both reduce wildfire and promote biodiversity?
I think unfortunately we're missing Jan Sinsemir. Jan, are you on? He sent me an email that he was having trouble joining, and that's the voice who was going to speak to this. Do we have any other ecologists on here on online? Unfortunately, also Juliet had to leave. She's a marine ecologist, but I think she had to leave. Okay. Yeah. I mean, I think this example you brought up, Lydia, is absolutely right on. You know, that I do know that I've been reading quite a lot of biodiversity now. I'm an economist, so this is something new to me. But, you know, lawnmowers, you know, one of the worst things for biodiversity. And, you know, so I think our whole urban gardening, you know, of how we manicure our lawns is really an issue. And you're right about insurers. I mean, they do give incentives. At least I know in California, where the insurers are pulling out, they do give incentives. You know, like one, you shouldn't have a wood terrace out. You know, almost every beautiful ranch house in Hollywood has these beautiful wood terraces. A problem. You know, you shouldn't have a flammable roof. And I do think, although I won't guarantee this, because I have found in my research, and Jamie, you correct me if I'm wrong, but I have found in my research that insurers don't often give premium reductions for risk reduction because it's too costly for them to police it, to find out, have you actually done it? And as long as they can just raise their premium, they don't care that you have risk until it gets so high that you can't pay your premium. And then they get very interested in risk reduction. So you'll find in the high flood risk areas in Germany, they're starting to institute internet things where you can put in what you've done to reduce your risk, put in pictures, and you might get a reduced premium, but this is a bit new. Allianz is doing that. Generally, you kind of have a standard price in a particular area based on exposure and the hazard.
That's really interesting. And I mean, for wildfire specifically, we have seen and have clients where the premiums associated with, for example, indemnity-based covers are becoming too much, basically. And so they've asked for innovations on the product side to try and work out, can we try some sort of parametric, which rather than focusing on the built environment, maybe looks at response cost instead, or focuses on a slightly different element of the risk that is posed by wildfire. Exactly as you say, Joanne, because the risk is deemed to be too high and too expensive to sustainably insure. I think we've got not too much time left, so I just wanted to repose this, I guess, ultimate question, which I think we've been sort of discussing towards already, but where we have these existing insurance-related approaches, whether it's on reefs or mangroves, around carbon capture, to what extent are those kind of approaches, do we think, applicable to wildfire or not? So those of you who have are doing research in particular around wildfire or other environmental systems, do you think there's something about wildfire that is very specific, some sort of characteristic which makes it difficult for insurance or for nature-based solutions to apply, or some that make it easier, perhaps, as well? It's a fairly tricky question, I think.
Well, I could put, oh no, Valentina, good.
Oh, Jamie said at the end is a tricky question. Yes, it is indeed. And I was also thinking about the words of Lydia. So for example, how the cleaning can impact biodiversity around the houses, can impact biodiversity, etc. Yes, it can, but we have to also take into account that we are talking about the people's lives, not only in terms of, you know, personal injuries, etc., but all the assets, all the monies of the people sometimes is there, and we have to think not only to dwellings but also to farms, to orchards, to agricultural, all the agricultural sector is impacted by wildfire, and sometimes I have, unfortunately, a lot of example here in Sardinia Island, where the fire destroyed everything. So it just make ashes of lives in terms of, you know, all the productive life of the people. So this is the tricky question. This is the problem with wildfire, but also with other, probably with other risks, but I'm more aware about the wildfire one. So it's difficult to find, let's say, a balance between, at least at the dwelling level, it's difficult to find a balance between biodiversity and risk reduction, because let's say the assets are maybe, let's say, perceived in a different way by the citizen, by the owners, and also by the fire managers. So maybe the biodiversity side is less important when you have to save lives and properties and assets and all the you know, activities, economic and activities of the people. So this is tricky when you have to understand how to design also insurance related solution that deals with risk but also with nature-based solution, because as also Edward said in another meeting, in the fire management activity, nature-based solutions are not depending on the landscape, depending on the area where that we are talking about, are more oriented to reduce biomass, reduce vegetation instead of rewilding or afforesting or this kind of. So this is the tricky point in wildfire, and this is an issue also in our project, Joanne, that we have to understand how to deal, which are the because also there are no many studies that deals with this kind of balance at landscape level also, as Edward said, and this is very important. So we have to understand what kind of we have to understand the hazard, the vulnerability, the exposure, all this kind of stuff, and try to establish some kind of priorities also. I know that is not very appealing saying that, but we have to if we want to save people and their activities. Okay, maybe I talk too much.
No, thank you, Valentina. And I think, yeah, you get to the crux of it there, where you're talking about the tensions between these different actors, which I guess are derived from their different perceptions and worldviews of this issue. No, a really important point. Ava, did you want to come in on that?
Well, not directly related to Valentina's comment, but one issue or one thought that I have regarding the complexity of wildfire as a hazard and its insurability is regarding the fact that wildfires are in many cases a result of this like compounding risk, and you have periods of drought and heat before that. So they basically hit an already quite stressed socio-ecological system and economic system. So for me, the question of insurability of wildfire risk is somehow very closely related. It's also how this complexity that comes in here can be covered in a way of multi-peril insurance or something like that. So just because it really is a problem not only on the economic aspects, but also relating to social and health aspects. I mean, people who already experienced periods of heat, I mean, may find it more difficult to evacuate or take care of their houses and take the right measures. So that's something, I would find important to integrate into the planning of these measures. So I don't have a solution for it. I just wanted to raise it.
No, I think that's a super point. And are there any specific geographies or examples where you've seen that kind of situation where we've got a stress system and then you get an acute event like a wildfire that kind of tips it over the edge?
Well, no, not really, actually. I don't have any specific. It's just, I mean, I've just read a bit on these olive orchards and wineries, vineyards, where I heard or I read that, for instance, I mean, there's droughts which already affect crops, and then you have maybe not even the fire, but actually the smoke that actually affects your crops and the quality. So it's So you already have a bad year because it's dry, and then you have smoke coming in as well, which again reduces your output. So it's, and at the same time, you're operating in a social system that is heavily stressed. So it's challenging. So that's, I mean, not a specific example, but bringing aspects together.
No, thank you. I think we're about to be thrown back into the main room. Any volunteers for the wrap up?